This month marks the 25th anniversary of the Detroit-based firm White Construction. The company has consistently made Black Enterprise Magazine's top 100 list of the country's largest African-American owned businesses. White Construction's footprint in Detroit includes several major projects, such as Campus Martius, the Detroit Riverwalk, Comerica Park, and Ford Field. Now the company can add the new Red Wings hockey arena and the M1 rail stations to its list of projects. I'm pleased to welcome the founder and president of White Construction, Bernard White, to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
25 years. I'm looking at you thinking you must have been a very young man when you started this company if it was 25 years ago.
25 years ago, I was 34 years old, and prior to that, I worked 8 years at the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, and after that, I worked 8 years at two major construction firms prior to starting White Construction. So I've been in this business, construction,
a long time.
About 41 years.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yes.
Since you were 18.
17 or 18,
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
right,
yes.
right, wow. I want to talk about M1 in particular, which I think is one of the more exciting things that's happening in downtown Detroit. We talk about it a lot as a transit project, which it is or isn't, depending on who you ask. But we don't talk as much about the stations themselves, which are a big part of this. I mean, the idea is that these stations will inspire development around them and change the area significantly. So you've got a hand in one of the very big parts of this project.
Yes, we will be a subcontractor. We'll be involved with safety for the entire project. I have a safety manager on the project, and also we will be involved with building the 20 stations from downtown Detroit up to Grand Boulevard. This year we plan to put in about 5 concrete platforms to begin the construction for those stations. They will primarily be in and around downtown. And next year we will be adding the precast structures, if you will, that go on top of the stations that basically provide some type of shelter from the elements for the riders. But additionally, these stations will be designed different for various sponsors who want to have their imprint, if you will, on these stations. And,
and companies are
exactly
sponsors.
So that'll be very exciting to see the various stations that are alike but different in other ways too.
Right, right. Entrepreneur in Detroit, I think that phrase right there suggests some resilience and stick-to-itiveness. That's pretty important. This is a tough place to run your own business of any kind. I would think, especially for an African-American business owner, that's a tough road.
It is tough. We've had a lot of successes and a lot of challenges, and I would say for every success we had challenges within them.
Yeah.
And for every challenge we've had successes in them. So, you know, I have to say that African-American owned firms like my own, White Construction, have had a lot of great opportunities in Detroit. The Detroit community, Detroit citizens, the city of Detroit mayors and their administrations have really supported African-American owned businesses, Detroit headquartered businesses, as well as trying to support Detroit residents getting involved. And that's something that we've become very good at on our projects, trying to make sure that we get Detroit residents involved, Detroit contractors, et cetera. And so that's been huge. Our challenge, Stephen, is trying to see how can we take our show more mainstream. And we've been very successful in and around Detroit. I would like to see us be able to do more mainstream work now that we've demonstrated that we can do major projects successfully on time and within budget. If we can take that act and maybe do more work around
Southeast Michigan, exactly. Right. Is that still a barrier, you feel, getting work outside of the city?
I don't know that it's a barrier. I will have to admit that we have to work a little bit harder to demonstrate and to go after some of those opportunities. And I also have to say that we've had so many great opportunities here in the city of Detroit that we haven't had to go after that and chase it as hard. So we have to look within ourselves and figure out what can we do to get at some of those opportunities, but also we like to have people open their arms and give us some of those opportunities too. And hopefully they won't have to necessarily be mandated. They can just look at us as a contractor that can do the work and not necessarily as a Black or Detroit contractor.
Sure. Take me back to that day 25 years ago, the first day of operation for White Construction. How did you get to that point? I mean, what made you think, I want to do this on my own, and then what did it take to get it up and running?
Well, I had spent about 8 years in two major construction firms, and we worked on major projects. I worked on the first expansion of Cobo Hall in 1986. I even was involved with the erection of the Joe Louis Fisk, putting the platform down for it and coordinating that. Trappers Alley in Greektown, which of course is now gone, but I was in charge of that project. So I learned a lot of different things during that tenure, if you will, and I thought possibly I could do this myself. And additionally, I had a lot of great mentors that I could look at or role models, people like Glenn Washington Associates, Williamson and Richardson, Charlie Stewart, and many others who were black contractors that were doing a great job. And so they served as a role model to help me think that maybe I could do that myself.
You could do it too, sure.
So, but on July 31st, 1989 is when I hung my hat up and started. I had a desk, a phone, and a computer. And some testicular fortitude, if you will. And I got started.
Yeah. So, and the thing that I think people don't quite get is the capital that's needed to start your own business. That it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. In my case, Steve, I think I had saved up about $20,000. I don't mind sharing this with everyone. And I gave myself about a 6-month window to say, hey, I can probably take care of my household expenses, et cetera, for 6 months before I would have to go back and get another job. And I was okay with that, because I figured that's really all I had was a job, and I could always go back and get a job if it didn't work out. But I didn't want to wake up and be 60 years old and say I wish I had given it a shot. So I wanted to give it a shot to get that out of my system, and luckily for me, it really worked out very well.
Right. And your training was you're an engineer,
yes.
You'd worked in construction. Running your own business, though, requires a different skill set.
Absolutely.
In terms of
yes.
management and
yes.
leadership and vision and those kind
yes.
of things. Where do you feel like you got that from?
You know, I tell everybody a lot of times that I'm an introverted engineer type person that really likes to sit in the corner and do his job and make things happen.
Like all engineers.
Exactly. And so people figure since you're the head of your company, you should be, outgoing and, that type of thing, extroverted. That's not me. I like to just do a great job, and then that's it. But I've learned over the years that it's less engineering for me, and it's more about managing people. It's more about relationships and that type of thing. And I'm getting better at it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say to young people in the city who might say, hey, maybe someday I own my own business? What are the things they need to do, or the experiences they need to try to get for themselves to be successful at that?
And typically what I do is share with them my experience. Growing up in a single parent home, my grandmother used to get up every morning and cook me a full breakfast before I went to high school. And she would sit down and tell me about her life in South Carolina growing up. But she encouraged me to get the best education I could, and she told me that, when I get to be a man, I could do anything I want. And because I trusted her integrity and her intelligence, I did exactly that. So when I go to Detroit public schools and I talk to a lot of young black children, sometimes I ask them to stand up and tell me their name and maybe what they want to be when they grow up. And typically I get responses like, I'm going to be a rap artist, or I'm going to play basketball. And I ask the question, if you go to the grocery store and you want to get in and out fast, what line do you get in? And they say, well, you go to the express line, you go to the shortest line. I said, well, basketball and rap artists, that's the longest line there is.
Right?
You can do something else and be rather average or kind of good, like an engineer, attorney, doctor, or something like that if you study hard for it, and do extremely well. Right. And you can see the lights going on in their head when you share that.
The calculus changes, right?
So I would say get a good education and work very, very hard. And that's something that I've done. I've worked very hard, and I'm probably not the smartest guy in the world, but I'll outwork my counterparts.
Right,
for sure.
right. Well, and that's a real key component, that again, resilience, never giving up and keeping at it. I'm wondering, you've worked on so many different things in the city, and the city has changed dramatically
yes.
over that time. It looks so different, especially downtown, than it did. What's your sense of where we're headed? Is it in the right direction? Do we have a lot more work to do? Are we doing the right things to make this a better place?
I'm excited about Detroit's future. I think, and I'm also excited to be here to witness it. I mean, of course, we've been talking about it for years and years when Detroit going to come back around, but I think Detroit is going to do well. I think there's so much pent-up demand and development for things going in Detroit. I'm already speaking to various developers from far away as Australia that are invested in Detroit and doing things, and we're starting to do things for them in the residential market. So there's a lot of people beginning to invest in Detroit, and I'm hopeful that a lot of us, existing black entrepreneurs and also some of the Detroit residents will be able to participate going forward over the next 25 years, because we've been here for a long time, and I think it's important that we have that opportunity to participate going forward.
Right. Do you feel like there's a danger that you won't be included, or that people will be left out?
I don't know that there's a danger. I just think we need to continue to advocate for opportunities for Detroit residents and Detroit businesses. And additionally, a lot of us have great experience. We know Detroit, we know the subcontracting community, we know the business community, so it makes good sense from a business point of view to keep us involved. Of course, we pay taxes, our employees pay taxes, so it makes sense from a business point of view to do that way.
Okay, well, congratulations on 25 years, and here's to 25 more, right?
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you very much.